Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are attending the, gosh, is it really August already? 2013 Tabs3 Virtual User Group Meeting. Yes, that is the official title. Wow, is it really August already? Tabs3 Virtual User Group Meeting 2013. Okay, I rearranged it there a little. I'm a little bit nervous today because I am on my own. Mary Jo is in South Bend, Indiana, at a firm doing a practice master install, a firm that already has Tabs and the accounting software and frequently attends these sessions. They're probably not attending today because they are getting practice master installed. They're replacing time matters. So I am on my own. I am taking both topics all by myself, so you'll have to be a little bit, I don't know, understanding because, as I said, I'm a little bit nervous. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. This is your go-to webinar control panel. You can use it to control your questions mainly. You'll notice that there is a little sidebar that juts out to the left, and then there are a series of buttons, and the top button probably looks like arrows pointing to the right. When you click that button that looks like arrows pointing to the right, this big box will slide out of the way so that if it happens to be covering up part of my screen, you can get it out of the way so you can see everything. Once you've done that, these arrows will change into arrows that look like they are pointing to the left, and they indeed are pointing to the left. And yes, clicking that button again will cause this to slide back into focus so that you can see it again. Now, you would want to do that if you're shy but have a question. In other words, if you want to type a question right here and then click the send button, Leanne, our humble and patient moderator, will interrupt me at the appropriate time, ask your question on your behalf, and then make sure your question gets answered for you. So if you have follow-up questions as I'm answering your question, continue to type them here, remembering to hit the send button after each one, and Leanne will continue to ask questions on your behalf. Now, if you're not feeling shy and you want to ask a question, you can also click this button, which looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That means raise your hand. And Leanne will also notice that happening, and she will also interrupt me at an opportune time. But when she does, instead of reading your question, she will unmute you and let you ask your question. Again, continue to ask those follow-up questions. She will not mute you again until we are certain that you've got your question answered. And then we'll mute you again so you can continue eating lunch. So without further ado, today's topics are statement comments. Now, we called these statement comments in the registration information. That's a little deceiving. They're actually comments that appear in the transactions, but then can appear on the statement. Somebody pointed out to me that there is another thing called statement comments, beginning statement notes, ending statement notes. This is not to be confused with that. This is things that can appear within a fee transaction, for instance, that are not to be seen by the client. The other topic for today is tying invoices in accounts payable to the corresponding cost entries in tabs. Many of you are familiar with the fact that when you write a check or enter an invoice into accounts payable, you can, at that very moment, apply it to the appropriate client or clients, matter or matters for billing, if it's a cost that's being advanced on behalf of a matter. Not quite as many people know, however, that you can also go back through that interface, through accounts payable, to get back to see that transaction information after the fact, even after it's been billed. So we're going to show you both those things and talk about them and cover that topic. But before we do that, we're going to talk about comments in fees. Now, comments actually can appear anywhere in a transaction, be it a fee, a payment, a cost, and they're simply turned on by right-clicking and choosing statement comments, and then turned off. It's kind of like a toggle switch. We'll do that. But before I do that, I want to point something out. Comments will always show on the screen. Comments will always show in a WIP report, and some of you may not have ever even heard of a WIP report, but if you come in here, I believe we can find it in here, detail work in process, summary work in process. The detail work in process shows you the descriptions for all the WIP, and some people use the WIP report instead of draft bill. So it will appear here and on a draft bill. But it won't appear on a draft bill unless you've told the system to do that, and you tell it that on a template by template basis. Now, most of you are familiar with the fact that if we go into the client setup, one of the things we can specify is which template to use for draft and final bills. And those determine what level of detail we have in the bill, and they determine what appears at the top or the bottom. So sometimes you have different templates to, because your criminal cases, you show all the detail in the world, date, attorney initials, description, hours, rate, and amount. And in other bills from perhaps other different types of law, maybe estate planning or something else, you might only show that this person did this, 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 and this is how much we're charging you. That's all controlled by the statement templates. We're going to get out of the client manager, and we're going to go into statements, setup, statement templates. We're going to pull up a statement template, and we're going to point right down here, print statement comments on draft statements. Now you see, they call them statement comments too, so that's where I got the terminology. But what this means, as opposed to the statement notes here that can appear at the end or beginning of a statement on either a regular bill or a cover statement, these are the statement comments. These are the hidden notes that are entered on a transaction specifically to bring something to the forefront for other partners to review, for other attorneys, for the people that are doing the billing and preparing the drafts and reviewing them to see. So without this being turned on, you're not going to see it. Now, it's turned on for each specific template. So here I've got a draft template where it is turned on, and here I've got one called final where it is turned on. Hours, invoice. Invoice did not have it turned on. Recap, summary. In my sample system, most of them have this turned on, and a couple do not. So be aware of that. If you're trying to use this, and you're trying to print a draft bill on paper or on the screen, and you're not seeing these statement notes, this is why. So let's go take a look at them. What do they look like? Let's go back here. Many of you know that Mary Jo and I are very fond of the client manager, so we're going to go in there, and we're going to pull up Michael Larson's case, and we're going to go and add a fee. And so I'm going to say that Michael Jensen worked today. As also many of you know, our sample system has a default date of 11/15/11. No significance. It's just where our sample data lives. And we're going to put in hours worked of 1, and we're going to put in prepare memorandum. Now, perhaps we really worked 3 hours. And we're not going to get into the fact that we could have hours worked 3 and hours to bill 1. That's not germane to what we're talking about here. But let's pretend that we worked a lot longer on this, but we're only billing 1 hour. Okay. Now, in this example, hours to bill, of course, also defaults to 1. So we're billing an hour, but we want somebody that's going to review this bill, perhaps my boss, maybe I'm an associate attorney, perhaps the other attorney that's working on the case with me and we're both partners. Somebody needs to know why. So I'm going to right-click in the description. I'm going to turn on statement comment, and I'm going to say this was actually 4 hours spent, but because of a misunderstanding with the client, we went down the wrong path to begin. You'd think, typing as slow as I do to start, that I would have chosen a different description, but I didn't. And now I can actually also right-click here and choose Statement Comment again and turn it back off. You'll notice when I'm looking at it, it's either checked or not. If I get back here and right-click, it's checked. If I get out here and right-click, I can turn it off and type some more. Prepare memorandum to client or whatever. Now, when we print the bill, this will simply come up as Prepare Memorandum to Client. When we print a draft bill, it'll come up, the final bill, I'm sorry, would come up as Prepare Memorandum to Client. The draft bill will actually also have this note inside. Now, the note is, in the sample I'm going to show you, the note is crossed out. So let's go take a look at that. Now, you'll notice I can see this note right here, too. So anytime anybody looks at this record on the screen, with the exception of on a bill that's been, the draft bill that's been printed to the screen, this note's going to show up. On a draft bill that's printed on the screen, it's only going to show up if that checkbox was checked for the template that was used to prepare that draft bill. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go out of here, and I'm going to generate a statement from Michael Larson. And this is what that looks like. Prepare memorandum, then the note, and then to client. Now, you probably wouldn't have the note in the middle of this description like this. I merely did that to show you that you can turn it off, you can turn it on, you can turn it off again, you can turn it on again, you can turn it off again. It's a thing that goes back and forth. It's a toggle switch is what we call it. It's either in one state or another, and clicking it again causes it to go into the quote-unquote other state. So you can make this look however you want. I think it looks kind of silly now, but I did that mainly to prove my point or to show you exactly how you can turn it on and then turn it off again and continue with the part of the description that we'll show. Now, just to illustrate, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to print a final statement using a trick that we give in other VUGs and that we actually have an e-byte about, so I'm not going to go into detail. But we're going to sneak in here and print a final for this client, just so you can see. And it doesn't have the right header. That's a problem with configuration. That's what it looks like on the final bill. Very useful. I was sitting behind somebody when my emails came out at a firm, at a client who actually is attending right now. Hello, Denise. And she went right in. She goes, "What is this? How do you do this?" And then she went right in and started to play with it. And she, by the time I got back to what I was doing or left the room, she had already figured out 2 or 3 different ways that this would be useful for the attorneys in her firm. So very neat feature that not many people know about, creating a comment on a bill. Do we have any questions, Leanne?
Paul, there are no questions.
Leanne's actually in the room with me today. It's an exciting day. Usually Mary Jo sits at the desk that's right across from mine. But Leanne's in here with me. Leanne, how does it feel to be in here with me today? Is it as exciting for you as it is for me?
It's a thrill.
It's a thrill. Are you living the dream?
I'm living the dream.
There we go.
I just don't even know.
Okay, now, on to our next topic. If anybody thinks of any questions, they can ask them while we're moving on, and we can come back and answer them. I'm going to go over to accounts payable, and I am going to go in, and I'm sure most everybody here knows this, but when you write a check in accounts payable, if you're set to integrate with Tabs, it will put that onto the client's bill, if appropriate, at that very moment. So just to illustrate and just to walk us through this, I'm going to go in and create a check that I'm going to write to the clerk of courts for County of Lancaster. And I'm going to let it assign a reference number. It's going to be $100. It's a filing for Michael Larson. Michael Larson gets all our filing fees, so hopefully he'll pay them when he gets his bill. And of course, it integrates with General Ledger, and we've got it set to take us right over here, and it doesn't automatically default to Michael Larson to bill. It doesn't know that. I want to point that out. But at this point, we're able to say, no, we're going to bill Michael Larson, and he's already there. And we're going to bill him with the description filing fee, and we're going to press F2, and it will automatically apply the amount of the check. It can put in a description that's based on the criteria from that check, or it can just say filing fee. It's entirely up to you. And of course, you can override whatever it's got. And we save it, and it's done. Now, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Leanne, is that a question about what I just talked about or what I'm talking about now?
It's a question about statement notes. Do you want to answer it at the end?
Yeah, well, we'll come back to the notes at the end. So keep the questions coming about notes, and we will come back to them as soon as I'm done with this. Now, that's how our regular integration with Tabs works. Now, if you go over to Tabs and pull up Michael Larson, who I believe we already have up, and look at costs, we've got a lot of them, but we've got the description we just did. And if we try to edit and save it, it's not going to let us do it. And the reason it's not going to let us do it is because it didn't come from here. Now, somebody asked about this, I believe, at the last or the second to last virtual user group meeting. And this is what I was alluding to when I answered that. It will not let you edit this here because you need to go back in through accounts payable. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So let's do that. I'm going to go back into accounts payable. I'm going to pull up that same check that we just wrote to the clerk of courts. And we have a button that appears right here called Tabs3 Costs. And you can also get to that same screen that I'm about to get to by clicking on, or by holding the keys Control-Shift-C, as in cost. So we click that button, and it takes us to a cost entry screen. It shows a blank entry, and then and we could add a new entry that we're tagged to this particular item. We'll talk about that in a second. Or we can see the ones that were already created for this particular check. Now, you may be thinking, for one thing, what do you mean the entries or add a new entry? If you write a check for a filing fee to the clerk of courts, it's only applicable to one matter. So let's back up for a second and imagine that instead we wrote a check to FedEx for $100 that represents 5 $20 charges for next day air. And 3 of those were attributable to clients. So at the time that we entered the bill, we created 3 separate transactions for Tabs to bill them to this matter and this matter and this matter. We would then be looking, when we came back in, at 3 listings down here, 1 for 20, 1 for 20, and 1 for 20. And at that point, if we wanted, we could add a 4th one. Maybe that 4th one we thought was a firm-related overnight charge, and it turned out to be for Michael Larson also. So when we come back here, if there's still money to apply, or even if there's not, we can create a new transaction, or we can edit an existing transaction. And so we can make our changes. Maybe we wanted to add something to the description to indicate what the filing fee was for. Or maybe we only wanted to bill him for $99 or $95. Obviously, you're not going to do that with a filing fee, but sometimes you might, or maybe we wanted to bill more. Sometimes you may pay for something for a client and then mark that up, like expert witness fees or certain other fees. But the bottom line is, this is how you get in to change these. I'm going to back out for just a second. I'm going to pull up a different invoice for Michael Larson. And I'm going to kind of cross my fingers here because I didn't test this. Yeah. Once a final bill has been printed that reflects that cost, you can't go back into Tabs and edit it. It just doesn't make sense. You've already billed for it. So, of course, this method will still show you how that check broke down. Here's the check that we wrote for $150 to the clerk of the district court for a marriage filing fee. And when we go back in, we still see exactly how it works, how it broke down, how it was applied. But when we go to try and edit that one, it says we can't do it because the archive has been created. Any questions on integration and getting back to those Tabs entries from accounts payable, Leanne?
I have 2 questions. The first one, why won't Tabs let us edit costs that are entered in AP? Switching back and forth seems not very time-saving.
Well, it's not time-saving. The thing is, we need to maintain the integrity between the 2, and this is the way that's done. You need to go back in through the invoice, not not to save time, obviously, but to maintain the integrity between the check that's written in AP and how it's been distributed in Tabs. Other question?
This question is just for information. Colleen was not aware of the integration between Tabs and AP, and she wants to know where she can get more information.
Well, Colleen, I'll send you something when we get done and probably give you a call and make sure that you get all your questions answered. So info on int. I will take care of that. Now, how about that question we had, Leanne, on the statement comments?
Okay, this question is, can we do this for drafts under the statement notes?
I think what they're asking, and go ahead and type and indicate to me whether I'm answering the right question once I get done here. I think what they're asking is if we go into beginning and ending statement notes, there they are, can we add a statement comment? And the answer is no. You'll notice it's there, but that's because this right-click initiates the same menu no matter what type of memo box you're in. Here you're in statement notes, and so you're wondering, can we put a comment in the statement note so that we'll have something? Statement notes, by the way, these beginning and ending statement notes would appear at the top or bottom of a bill. So if I go in here and I type, this is a beginning statement notes, and save it, and then go print a draft bill, just so people that may not be familiar with this concept can follow along. When we go to print the bill, this is a beginning statement note, appears at the beginning of the statement, and people put all sorts of things in here. They're specific to the matter, so it's kind of a way you can enhance these miscellaneous lines 1, 2, and 3, plus the work description by adding additionally some statement notes. But no, comments are not available there, so you can't put something in here that will appear on a draft statement and not appear on a final. Now, so because this person asked this question, we are going to tell you the secret way to get things done. If you send an email to wishlist@tabs3.com explaining that it would be very helpful to you, be sure to emphasize that this would have a huge amount of value to you and give examples why and how to be able to have notes that appear on a draft statement but not on a final, and go into detail. Explain that it's the same feature that they already have available in the fee transactions, you just want it on the statement notes. Then you are voting for STI to do that. And we get a lot of things done this way. I'll tell you in a minute about a certain client I have. If you take that wish list email and carbon copy or blind carbon copy, it's up to you, me, paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com, Purdue like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. Then I will take and send an identical wish list request from my email address. It counts as 2 votes, and it has 2 different perspectives. One is one of STI's largest resellers in the world, suggesting that this would be helpful to one of his clients, and the other is from that client themselves, suggesting that this would be helpful. Now, I do have a client who has, it's a moderately sized 35 attorney firm. And in the administration suite, there are about 7 or 8 people, and that's where I sit when I'm there. And some of these people have to do with billing and some don't, but we don't usually care. We usually include them all. When I send an email to Wishlist on behalf of them with something that's important to them that we think should be changed, we carbon copy everyone in the admin suite, and they immediately hit reply all and say, yes, that would be cool, or yes, that would be helpful, or yes, I agree. And so we're voting like 8, 9 times, depending on how many people we're including in this blind carbon copy or carbon copy. And we've gotten some big things done. One of them is coming out in version 17. and it was something we asked for about 5-6 months ago, and it'll be in 17, and it will be tremendous help to this firm and actually to many of our other clients. So no, the short answer, if it's possible for me to do that, is no, you can't use that neat functionality right here. The long answer is perhaps we should request that STI consider adding that functionality. Do we have any more questions, Leanne?
No more questions, Paul.
Okay, awesome. I guess I didn't have quite the reason to be nervous as I thought. Next month, our topics for the Tabs3 virtual user group meeting will be using the transaction file list for ways other than just listing transactions. For instance, one of the main focus of what we're going to show you in this particular example is how to get a list of payments by check number. So if you want to see all the different checks that have been applied to a certain client's or a certain matter, I should say, has payments, and see it from that perspective, we're going to show you how to do that. And along the way, we're going to introduce the concept of using the transaction file list for a lot of really neat different ways to query the information that's in Tabs. Our other topic for that meeting will be how to look at and report on and show the receipt allocation. We talked a couple months ago about how to set up rules to divvy up the money that's entered as payments in ways other than by who did the work. For instance, the most common example, of course, is origination. Since these two attorneys originated this client that brought this matter to us, even though they're not working on this particular matter, this guy gets 10% and this guy gets 15%. We talked 2 months ago about how to do that, and you'll find the archive recording on our website. The next month, we're going to talk about how to get reports and how to interpret the reports that show how that's broken down. So one of the things I want to show you then is that if you go to our website, you have the ability to click on all the different recorded content that we have. We, of course, have our 3 virtual user group meetings, Tabs3, Practice Master, and World Docs. We have our Coffee Pot webinars, which are short 30 to 35-minute webinars that introduce different products that can be used with Tabs or with Practice Master, or sometimes talk about things like integrated accounting or other things that you may want to add onto your system. We have Mary Jo's eBites video series where she gives short 3 or 4 or 5-minute quips on how to do this or that or the other thing, neat little things that can fit into a little nugget of information. And we have the Paul and Mary Jo show. My son turned to me the other day and said, do you really have something called the Paul and Mary Jo show? And I said, yes, Spencer, we really do have something called the Paul and Mary Jo show. What I'm really getting at, however, is that if you click here, you will find the information to register for the next virtual user group meeting, and you will have recordings of every one that we've ever recorded. And as you can see, they go on for a little while. We've been doing the Tabs virtual user group meeting for probably 4 years, and we've been recording them for about 2.5, 3 years, and you will find those all here. So, last thing, we have a beta date. The beta for version 17, without any delay, I should say, without any interruption, should be appearing in the end, sometime in the last couple weeks of September for customers. It actually goes out in the first week or 2 of September to resellers. That's us. We need, as resellers, and I assure you I will do this, to install it, answer the initial survey questions about how that installation went, what features we've looked at, which ones we haven't. And as long as us as resellers meet that criteria and get that information to Tabs at that time, in the end of September, they will be shipping beta versions of version 17, beta copies of version 17 to the people who have signed up to be beta testers. What does that mean to you? Well, if you're already signed up to be a beta tester, it just means we now have a date, and that's good. If you're not, but you would like to participate in the beta testing for version 17, email me, paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com, and just let me know that. I'll take care of all the details. I'll get you signed up. If you have questions about what's going to be in version 17, you can either email me ahead of time and let me know that you'd like the quote-unquote what's new list so that I can get you a copy of that. You can see absolutely everything that's new. Or Leanne is going to make a note that when we send out the emails that tell you that the recorded version of this webinar or this VUG that you're attending right now are online, we will include attached to those emails the version 17 What's New list. So that's it. No more questions. Then I am out of here. Everybody have a good afternoon and a good month, and we will see you next month. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.